Hello, I'm Brian Galbraith. I'm the owner of Galbraith Family Law, which is a law firm of family and divorce lawyers with offices in Toronto, Newmarket, and Barrie. And I'm really honored and pleased to have Michaele-Sue Goldblatt with me today. She's an MSW, a Master's of Social Work, a registered social worker, a clinical social worker, and a counselor and therapist. She works at a business called Milestones and Transitions. And I think that's primarily what you're talking about with clients day in and day out, are their milestones and transitions and the challenges that they're having every day. Isn't that right, Michaele-Sue?
Brian, it's absolutely right. The other part of our little logo says moving forward. And
Ah,
it's exactly, you described it perfectly. We work with people as they're facing changes and transition in their lives and trying to help guide them and walk with them through that journey.
so today we're going to talk about blended families. And I've got a little PowerPoint, so I'm going to share the PowerPoint that you put together so well, Michaele-Sue, and we'll work our way through here. We can also we're happy to take any questions that people have. If you just put them in the chat, that would be great. We'll be able to uh, see them and reply to them as we go forward. So the first slide is, what is a blended family? I think that's important that we define that.
Absolutely. So essentially, just as it says here, a blended family is a family of two or more families that have chosen to live together as one. Okay, so there's all kinds of permutations of that, um, but it is essentially typically at least one adult with at least one child joining with at least one other adult, often with a child. If you'll go to the next one, yeah, right. So
So
who's who? That's what I've tried to show here. His children, her children, and maybe our children. So not always children that the new couple have together, but there might be. There's also his, and maybe ours, hers, and maybe ours, and they, and maybe theirs. Even within that framework right there, there's other pieces of it too, because each adult partner, if they have children, already have a former spouse or person with whom they had their original children. So a blended family can be relatively small and concise, or it can be very large. Typically, the larger, the more complicated, but also the more opportunity for joy.
so the goal, as stated here, is to find a way to celebrate these special days in a way that's respectful and comfortable for everyone, right?
Absolutely. So that the new family, that's what I'm going to call it, the new family wants to honor and celebrate birthdays, Christmas, Kwanzaa, special days in the family's life. Yet they still have to be cognizant of the fact that the child likely has one or two other parents, plus grandparents, aunts, and uncles, lots of people who may want to join with that child to celebrate.
And really, the goal is to have smiles all around. I like this slide.
Yeah, I love this slide because to me, this is representing in the background a man and a woman, and I'm presuming that the child lives with them. But here is likely the child's father, biological father, who is coming to take the child for a visit, maybe to see his family or back to his house. But to me, the most important, and this is our goal, is that all four people are smiling and they look, it looks real, like it's working in this particular family.
That's not always easy to achieve, though.
It takes a great deal of work to achieve, Brian, and also everybody who's on the call. I'm sure you're saying, oh yeah, look at that, does she think that's realistic? Well, the truth is I do, but I do know it takes a lot of work to get there. And a little bit later on in the presentation, I'm going to address that a little more fully.
So you're hoping that even former spouses can participate together sometime.
I am hoping that, and I have seen it. I have seen it in blended families, and another area that I've seen it in, and which both of which are very gratifying. I've seen it in adoptive families, where adoptive families have on direct ongoing contact with their child's birth family, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and I'm here to say it truly can work. It takes a lot of discussion, negotiation, and primarily goodwill and respect, but it can happen. And one of the things when I'm working with people, either adults who are considering coming together in a new union, both having had children prior, is I ask them what their relationship is with their, what I'm calling their ex-laws. So their former in-laws,
Right,
because, your child's grandparent or aunts and uncles from the other side, not your parents, but your former spouse's parents, they're part of your child's life too.
right. That's an important thing to remember.
Yeah. So, Brian, I lost the PowerPoint.
No, I just turned it off so we
Oh,
can see your
oh,
face from time to
oh.
time. I'll do that.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks. All right.
Sorry.
Great.
So uh, the next one is a big blended family.
And I showed this because I did want to show that sometimes it really can be this many people. So it's not only, let's call it new husband and new wife, new partners, because it might be husband and husband, wife and wife. It's not only them. It can be their parents. It can be their sisters and brothers. It can be the former spouse and his or her new partner. It can be other children. It's complicated, but I'm here to say it truly does work. And I hadn't meant to share this necessarily, but I have a granddaughter who has, I believe she has 8 grandparents.
Wow.
And you know what? We make it work. And I do know that um, two of the original parents, two of the original grandparents, are not on the best of terms, but I give them so much credit because we, as a large family group with 8 different grandparents, are able to be together to celebrate our granddaughter's birthday and other occasions. And we get through it well, and so it can happen. Okay.
So let's focus on planning with the other families. Our kids have to jointly plan holidays and birthdays that don't end up in tears, anger, and resentment.
Okay, so my thoughts here are, there are lots of ways to celebrate birthdays and holidays. And that last picture with that giant, great big family, that isn't the only way.
Right.
I, as a parent with my new partner, we might celebrate our child's birthday or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa early in the day, knowing that our child is going to be joining the other parent's family. The key to this, as the key to everything, is respect and goodwill, and also some organizational skills of saying, okay, what time works for you? This would work for me. Would that work for you when you're talking to your child's other parent? And also recognizing that your current spouse may be talking to his or her former parent, former spouse to organize their children. It's complicated, but as I said, let's put our organizing tools to work so we can try to make it terrific for the kids and manageable for all the adults.
Yeah, when it came to, I went through my own divorce, and we had have 3 children from that marriage. And when it came to birthdays, what we'd say is that instead of focusing on a birthday, it was a birthday season because
Okay.
we'd have a week or 2 weeks over which there might be going out with one set of parents, one parent and the children, and then a party at one house, a party at a different house, or events with relatives. It was spread out over a week or even 2 weeks, and it was made it for a great time for our children.
Yeah. I think that's a great solution. And I think that frankly, there are as many solutions to that as there are people.
Right.
So again, the most important thing is to be able to talk to all the formers, talk to them and say, what can we do that works?
Yeah, we
Okay.
don't want this.
This is exactly what we do not want. Miserable, angry kids who have just had it with all the adults. And you know, and I know these kids are going to be tough to deal with because they are so angry at us. They're
Right.
angry at the adults who have not managed it well.
Yeah, I think the kids, they just want the parents to work it out, and so they can have some fun. And whether it's sharing a day or having separate days or doing things together, whatever creates the better atmosphere is what the kids want.
Well,
And
and what they're really,
they expect us as parents to work it out.
yeah,
And yeah, I think it's about putting aside your ego, don't you think? And saying, like, what will work for everyone here? Like, think of
absolutely.
globally, the whole family.
Well, and what the kids, the thing that they don't want the most is for the parents to be fighting because
Right.
it just ruins it for everybody. So if the parents are bitching about the other parent, oh, your father's late, he's always late. Okay, this is not helpful. Okay, get on the phone and say, we're waiting because we're planning on this and this. What time do you think you're going to be here? Are you running late? Or if the person who is running late, call the other person, say, oh, you can't believe the traffic here. I'm stuck at such and such and such and such. I'll be there in about 20 minutes.
Right.
That can calm the atmosphere so significantly that we don't end up with that former picture of those very angry and likely deservedly angry kids.
Yeah, and I've had clients who have reported that their spouse just uh, would arrange a time to come and then not shown up, and how devastating that is for the children.
Brian, unfortunately, that happens a lot. Um, those parents still need a lot of, I don't think they're at this place yet with a blended family that's going to work. They
Right.
are still dealing with some very primitive stuff that's been happening from before, from during the marriage, from right after the marriage. Um, those adults, they need work and they need support. And if one parent is not able to fulfill promises to be there, then okay, at a certain point, the other parent, possibly with the help of a therapist, has to try to explain it to the child and find a way that the person can parent in whatever way he or she can. So the parenting may be very limited. Many years ago, I learned from a very wise teacher who talked to us about percentage parenting. Many people are parents, we're parents 85% of the time, 90% of the time. Sometimes we feel like we're parents 150% of the time. Um, our children live with us. We parent them the best we can. Other times, parents may not be available. Maybe a parent is overseas working in a different city. Maybe a parent is incarcerated. Maybe a parent is ill. Those parents may be able to parent on a more limited basis. Maybe it's a um, birthday card, Christmas card, and a week in the summer. There are different ways of parenting. And if a parent is not able to pull it together, because that's really what it's about, and come for a visit, maybe that person feels so hurt. Maybe that person doesn't have a job, feels ashamed. We don't know the story, but our job is to help that person and the child come to terms with it so we don't set up these unrealistic expectations that the other person cannot meet.
Right, right.
It's
Well,
hard.
let's get down to giving some tips. You've got some
Oh,
ideas about what how to make a blended family work.
well, frankly, Brian, the tips are let's keep going because they're in the next realm.
Okay. Holidays,
And I
birthdays.
do promise I'll get to them. So Brian and I just picked a few holidays. Your family may celebrate other days. Christmas. Now, Christmas presents a bit of a problem unless we're going to follow your suggestion of the Christmas season, because typically families celebrate either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And I frankly love the idea of Christmas season or Christmas week, perhaps, because then, grandparents can possibly have the children on a different, earlier day of still being able to celebrate. Because the 2 days, only 2 times does create a problem.
Next one. I remember with my children, they wrote a special letter to Santa to let him know that my boys would be with me on the 26th or the 27th. I can't remember. And the kids just wanted to make sure Santa knew to come to my place on that other day because it was a different day.
Oh, I think that was brilliant.
And you know what, Michaele-Sue? He did. He came on the other day.
That's Santa.
So cooperative. Santa understands blended families and separated families. It's kind of a new normal.
Yeah, and isn't it marvelous? Yeah. Oh, I bet that all those reindeer must have been so busy.
They were nice to spread the work out over a few days.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
And then Kwanzaa is a longer celebration. See,
yes. That's what I wanted.
7 days.
7 days of celebration. And as my research has shown me, that a lot of Kwanzaa is about eating, feasts with the family, with extended family. And what's great is many families already stretch it out over 7 days. So incorporating 2 or more families typically is a bit easier unless somebody comes up with that brilliant idea of sending the letter to Santa about the 26th and 27th. But Kwanzaa is a bit easier because it's same thing with Hanukkah, the Jewish holiday. It's over 8 nights. So there's room for all the grandparents and the children to still have the time to say the blessings and exchange presents.
Right. And be together.
And be together. Well, be together, although this year, let's face it, we're all virtual.
Yeah. What did somebody say? Be together, but separate.
Yeah, that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. 8 nights of
lighting the menorah and eat. Okay, birthdays. I think we've already discussed birthdays a fair bit. So let's go on beyond that.
Yeah.
All right, just repeating, how can we best manage? All right, now, when you ask me, how do we get to the happy blended family? We have to face reality. Blended families come together after there has been a loss. There's no way around it. It isn't just a new beginning. The new beginning came from an earlier loss. And the loss is either the death of a spouse or a parent or a divorce between the spouses and parents.
Right. And if anyone has any questions, they can just post them in the chat and we'll be happy to do our best to answer them. All tough questions go to Michaele-Sue.
So here, this is a sad picture. Here we see a father and his daughter standing at a gravesite in a cemetery. So my interpretation is that the wife and mother has died. Who knows what the future holds? But should this man meet another woman or another partner with whom he wishes to build a life, there still needs to be a recognition of the parent who is gone. Okay, they didn't disappear. They're part of us.
Right. most often what I see it relates to divorce, where someone separates and then they meet up with a new partner, and often that partner has children from a previous relationship. So that's challenging. The children might not get along immediately, and uh, yeah, it can be a real tug of war when they're trying to build a family together, and especially on special holidays and so on.
Yeah, I would say, Brian, that most likely the children will not get along initially. They don't know each other, and they're thrust into a foreign situation. But again, I think it's very important that we adults recognize ourselves that we find ourselves in this position because of a loss. And even though the parents may say, oh, thank God I'm out of that marriage, that isn't how they started out. They started out with hopes and dreams. People don't go into a marriage or a relationship thinking it will end. They go in hoping to have a happy life. So
Right.
there, even when there's anger and resentment and God knows what, there still is the loss of what might have been.
You're right.
And our children feel it even more so.
And so complicated that a family that may have successfully blended, then when a holiday comes, the children have to go to their parents' former spouse's home, their own parents' home. So it's sort of pulling apart the blended family. It's it's
I think that
complicated.
essentially we are asking a lot of the partners in the adult partners in the blended family, because we're asking them to extend their goodwill to all the formers.
Right.
Okay. All right. Can we go back one, Brian? I think was it back one? Yes,
Oh,
here.
you're right. Sorry.
So obviously, when there is either kind of loss by death or loss by cause of divorce, I mean, there's all those practical things that the parties have to face right from the beginning. Where are we going to live? What about money? Custody and access, and relationships with former spouses, family. And we could probably put in here 10 or 15 more questions. What school are the kids going to go to? I mean, all kinds of things. Um, and these are things that we can't avoid them. They're
Right.
pressing, and they need us to answer. They need answers. Okay, death and divorce don't happen on somebody's schedule. They happen.
Right. And I think, uh, from a legal point of view, that it prevents conflict when people come to an agreement in advance about these issues, with respect to how much time the children will spend with each parent going forward. Some families are able to just be flexible and work it out each year, but it requires an annual negotiation. So for a lot of families, it's nice to be able to have something to fall back on and say, okay, this is the agreement. This is what we're going to do each year. In even numbered years, we're doing this, and even odd numbered years, we're doing that. And and then there's some predictability and consistency. That because I think that's important for kids too, is that there's um, predictability and consistency, so that they know when they're going to be with each parent and when they're going to be together, and so on. Don't you feel that is helpful?
I think it's very helpful. I also, though, like to build in when I have the opportunity when I'm working with people. I like the idea of an agreement that people have worked hard on and come to. I certainly agree with you about having an order and regularity and predictability. But if possible, I'm hoping that the parties over time, as this has worked, can also allow for flexibility. So if it should turn out that, oh, I don't know, one parent has the opportunity, somebody's invited him and his children, family, to go on a ski trip with other friends. Does he have the kind of relationship with his former spouse, his children's other parent? Say, look, at this came up. Might we do this? And then we'll give you, then I can arrange for the kids to spend X amount of time with you, or this special time with you. And when the parents can do that, it makes it so much easier for the kids, because they don't have that sense of divided loyalties, of having to, to take one person's side. If the adults can say, your dad and I, your mom and I, your other dad and I, we worked it out, and this is what we think would be a good plan. That's the ideal.
That's
Let's
the
at least
ideal
strive
for
for it.
sure.
We may not be there. Let's work toward it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a goal, and it's achievable for sure.
Okay.
So here you're talking about mourning the loss
Yeah. The
and how important
mourning
that
the
is.
loss.
Yeah.
And it's not just a loss of the person. It's a lot. Perhaps it's a loss of a house, of the family home. Perhaps it's a loss of the school. Perhaps it's even the loss of the community. Maybe you move to a different neighborhood. There's all kinds of things. Maybe formerly you lived beside or down the street from grandparents. Maybe that's not a possibility anymore. There's so many pieces to it,
And
and we
it's
don't
kind of
want to
can
rush.
be it can be the loss of tradition, that these are certain activities that traditionally you've done together. And I remember a psychologist, Peter Marshall, he said, when you separate, it's important to try to start new traditions, and respect the old traditions had their place, but life has changed, and we need to find new traditions.
Absolutely. And build new ones together.
Yeah, and certainly during this time of COVID, this is really good advice too. We need to say, okay, traditionally we'd have a big gathering of everyone, but we can't do that now. So let's find new ways of celebrating that are respectful of everyone and safe.
And safe. Absolutely.
So there's a lot to unpack. I like
Okay.
this.
And as you can see, that suitcase is very messy. Okay. There's the feelings, let's face it, the feelings are messy. Okay. Um, do I really want my former spouse to be happier with his new spouse than he was with me? Probably not.
Yeah.
Do I think that I broke him in so that she gets the end result and I had to suffer through all the breaking in? I'm talking from a female point of view. There's all kinds of things. There's ending a marriage, certainly by divorce, is not easy. There's so many hurt feelings. There's so many missed opportunities. What if if that had happened? There's lots of recriminations. If one partner had relationships, romantic relationships outside the marriage, there's that hurt. The infidelity crisis. What does that mean? What do you mean my children are going to be with the woman who broke up my family? Okay, now the truth is, another woman did not break up the family. The husband broke it up. Okay, but it's easier to blame the other party. That's that messiness.
Right.
But important in that messiness is, let's identify it. Let's try to understand it bit by bit.
So is that what you do in your practice? Is help people unpack what's going on for them and how they're feeling about it, and so they can move through it and try to make decisions that are best for the children?
One of the things I find is most important when I'm working with a family who are coming to me in the process of separation or divorcing, or later, but then I try to get them to move back to that earlier stage of the process, is to recognize how much someone has been hurt. Okay. And what I find is, very often, and I often meet with, I don't, how can I say it? I'm not hired. I am never hired by one person, because I don't allow that to happen. I have to be, if somebody wants me to work with them, it needs to be something that all the parties, the two parties, and possibly the lawyers all have to agree to, because I'm definitely not a hired gun. to come in and, defend one person against another. I'm not getting into that battle. So I often do work with both partners. What I often find is that I need some sessions one-on-one with each partner, because a person may need to just complain, get it out, say what all the hurts were and be heard. And I can hear them because I'm not defensive. I'm not the other spouse. And very often, in fact, I would even say surprisingly often, when a person has felt heard, truly heard, they are better able to say, okay, well, that was then. And now I need to turn my attention to proceeding through this in a way that is the least hurtful and ideally the most positive for our children. And if I explain this properly to the people who may call me to engage me, so that they understand, it's not that I'm taking sides, it is that I'm giving each party an opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
And for anybody on this call, getting to that blended family, you have to go through these other steps first. It doesn't happen magically. Okay. And each person has to say, well, I'm at the beginning of this process. I'm still hoping maybe we can get back together, or is there no chance and am I moving on? What about custody and access? It's all part of the whole.
Right. And when you begin the journey, it's a challenge, and people can be recently separated. Sometimes it can be they can be farther along in their lives, and they're maybe meeting someone new, and have to think about how to introduce their children to that new partner. That's
Exactly.
that's a
And
challenge as well.
I love the opportunity of working with people when they come to me essentially early enough in the process where they're not making mistakes that then have to be undone. Because make sure that you have a pretty solid relationship with this new person before you're introducing him or her to your children. And my view, when I put that question, when do you tell your former spouse? My view is you tell your former spouse before you tell your children. Okay. Is this uncomfortable? Probably. Would you rather do almost anything else but? Very likely. But you know what? If you can enlist your former spouse and say, I've met somebody that I care about. I'd like to introduce him, or I'd like to introduce her to our kids, but I wanted to run it by you first. You're not asking for permission, but you're including your former spouse in such a significant way. You're still parents. The two of you are still parents to the same children. Let's try to do it better.
Yeah, and you can have that conversation to say, this new person is not going to replace you. Let me assure you, the kids aren't going to call them mom or dad. They're going to call them by their first name, and I will make sure they understand that this is not a replacement for you, because
Brian?
that's the fear I think people have, is that this new person is going to step into the shoes of the other parent, and that's a fear that you can assuage, that you can make them understand that that's not your intention. You just want to move on with your own life, and want the children to meet this new significant other.
Well, you said it perfectly. The next slide is my example of introducing
Right.
there. Okay. So, you can take it any way. You can take it that the man is the father of the children and the woman is his new friend, new partner, or you can take it that she's the parent and he's the new friend or partner. But it's a very delicate process. And again, if you are able, and I encourage you, talk to your former spouse. Say, I've met somebody new and I'd like to introduce him to the kids. Um, uh, you will hear my key word in this whole process. I have several words, but one of them is respect. Okay. Now, When your children meet the new person, hello, I hate to inform you, your children, even though you're separated, perhaps divorced, still have this fantasy. Mommy and daddy are going to get back together again. Okay? They all have it. Every one of them, even if it was disastrous, even if the marriage was, there was abuse in the marriage, there's still the prayer, well, maybe it will be different. So please be ready when you introduce a new person to your children, somebody's your new friend, somebody daddy cares about, mommy cares about this person. Your kids not only have to meet the new person, they have to accept the reality that mommy and daddy, or daddy and daddy, mummy are not getting back together again. That fantasy is over.
Right, right. But I've heard of cases where the kids are not willing to accept that new boyfriend girlfriend because they think that, you know, they're fearful that that ends the fantasy, and so then they put up some resistance.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's really what I'm saying here. Those are one,
Right.
two, three, the 6 kids, there's your resistance. You're going to have to, it's going to take time.
Yeah. And I think it's what I've told clients is that it's understandable. It's normal for kids to have that negative reaction, but we're the adults here, and we need to just support them as they get used to this big change in their life, right? And
Absolutely.
we got to take the higher road and just reach out and support our children through these difficult transitions. That's why people like you are so important. We send our clients to good social workers, therapists such as yourself regularly because they need the help and the assistance, the language, the objective observations that you can offer to them during their
Well,
difficult
and
time.
the experience we've had with
Yes.
others. Brian, I'm going to ask you to see if we can move through a little quicker because we're going to run out of time. Okay, so again, here, talk to your children. So if we look at that previous slide and come to this one, so here in my composition of the slide, the mother is talking to the child, explaining things. But I guess the most important thing here is give them time. Okay.
Right.
Okay, I'm making the same point again. In this picture, in my mind, these are former spouses with their children. Let's do it together. We will do it better together than apart.
And the key to it is being respectful of the, it's difficult for everyone in this family, right?
That's exactly that. Exactly. That's exactly what I've said.
And treat the children with respect and your former spouse, and see it from their point of view to understand what makes sense for them, and how this is a difficult time for them.
Absolutely.
Uh, so what
Brian,
would
we
you
can,
say?
if you don't mind, we can just keep going and I'll start talking when I have something that we haven't said already.
Okay, what does it take to for us to parent a blended family? You need time and space.
Absolutely. And as you said, it's the job of the counselor therapist to give you, the adult, the time and space to say what you have to say and feel that somebody has heard you. Okay. Because most likely you feel that your former spouse doesn't hear you. And you're probably right because everybody's in their own headspace. Somebody else can hear you.
Right, and when you feel like you've been heard, then you can move through it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's sure lots of leftovers from a
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah. That's back to that suitcase of unpacking.
Right.
You're still dealing with stuff from before. And this one I love. Not only do I have to contend with his ex, I have to contend with mine.
That's right.
Okay, the blended family stuff, it all sounds great. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, it's a lot of work.
And
We don't
you
want to
know,
do
I
that.
I think your point about being respectful is we need to respect that it is hard work and challenging, and give ourselves a break. You know, when my clients are struggling with these things, I say, hey, it is hard, and it's okay. It's normal for you to feel exhausted and overwhelmed. So
Absolutely.
I think people need to be easier on themselves.
And here, these are just, you know, as you're going through the process, we don't have to do it in detail right now, but what are the things that make it most difficult? How can you find what tools can you use? Can you find to make it a bit easier?
Yeah. And now, if it wasn't already tough, we have coronavirus.
So,
This is,
I mean, can you believe it? Can you believe what we're dealing with on top of the ordinary difficulties of handling divorce, custody, and new families? All right, let's go through these, Brian.
and you know, I think one of the things that people struggle with in a separation or a divorce is the uncertainty of their life and what's going to happen in the future. And then with this pandemic, there's a new layer of uncertainty that all of us have, that we don't know about the economy, our jobs, our health, our safety, our family, when we'll be able to see anybody, what will activities will we be able to do, everything. There's so much uncertainty. So to have a separation and a divorce and challenges related to that uncertainty, and then this new layer of uncertainty, it's just it's really hard. My heart goes out to all my clients that are going through this. And then sorting out holidays. So not only do you have to decide how you're going, what days are going to be with one parent and the other, then you have to just say, well, who's in the bubble, your
Exactly.
bubble.
What are you doing? Are you going out for dinner? Are you having people over? Oh, you want your brother to come over. Well, does your brother go outside to work?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
is he working at home or is he working in a grocery store? I mean, it compounds everything.
right. And
And it compounds it for every one of us. I think it's affecting every human being on this earth.
right. And it's I think it's challenging everyone's ability to be patient. You know, we're all on edge,
We're sick of
right?
it.
We're sick of it, and our patience is running out, and so
Thin,
it makes it hard. You know,
very
you want to
hard.
know what the rules are for mask wearing and your family and hand washing, and so there's all these questions, and we incorporate, as a lawyer, we often are incorporating these protocols in our separation agreements now as to COVID protocols for the families, so that we there's can be an agreement on what's going to happen in both families.
Great. That is so important. But I also know how hard it is to come to an agreement. But
Yeah.
that's great that you're doing that. Okay. So,
I'm not sure if we've got any questions. I can just stop sharing to see if there's anything in the chat. But
well,
I
we
think,
did have one question come in before that I can get to as soon as we finish.
okay. Yeah, we don't have any other questions right yet from our quiet audience.
Okay.
Um,
So I'd really like to go to the side that says words of wisdom. Oh, okay. So how can we help you? Can we help you sort out the issues? Find a way to try out, then trust the other. Develop the kind of relationship you want with your ex and with your current spouse. And I guess most importantly, show your children by your example that it is possible to work together. Frankly, that's what Brian and that's what we do.
yeah,
That's what we do.
in our law firm, we about 75% of our cases are non-court cases. You know, when we go to court, we're asking a judge to make a decision, and they have just this amount of information about the family, and they make a decision that everyone has to live with. So we can go to family court we do go to court on a regular basis when it's necessary, but especially with parenting issues, if we can bring people to the table through collaborative practice or mediation or just negotiations, We often have four-way meetings using Zoom, where we can talk about the issues and try to resolve them without going to court. Because when you go to court, you give that power to make decisions to a stranger, the judge. And it's so much better if the family can work together and make some compromises, understand each other and what your priorities are, your interests, your goals, and broker a deal that both of you can live with. That's what we're looking to do. And like I said, in 75% of the cases, that's what we're able to do is help them negotiate without going to court. But it's painful and hard.
Can we go to the next one? Here.
Yeah. There's
So
a judge.
words of wisdom. And I'm holding up, I don't know if you can see it. I am not, I'm not his agent. This is Mr. Justice Harvey Brownstone's book called Tug of War. And what I've quoted directly from him: how can two parents allow a total stranger to make crucial decisions about their child? And I'm fully in agreement with you, Brian. The more the parents can work it out themselves, the better for all of them. Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree. And that's coming from a judge who is empowered to make these decisions every day. And he's saying, why are you coming and asking me these questions?
Right.
This is your family. You need to work together to bridge the gaps and find ways, find solutions, so that you can get on with life. And so, I think it's so telling that it's coming from a judge, and he's saying, "Don't come to me,
Yeah,
work
exactly.
it out, right? If you can." Now, there are some cases, Michael-Sue, where we feel there's no choice. People are unreasonable and difficult, and just don't really want to negotiate. And so sometimes we end up in family court, but that's more expensive for clients, and it's not ideal. So
It's
it's
more
always
expensive
better
both ways.
if you
Now,
can find a way.
Brian, I have a question that just came in. So I'm going to read it out, okay?
Yeah.
I'm the grandparent of a young boy. The two parents are at each other all the time, and our grandchild would rather be with us than with his dad. How, as grandparents, can we help these two people get past their deep pain and hatred? They really loathe each other, and it's sickening. As grandparents, we are so scared that we may be making it worse, trying to bridge the gap that is wider and wider. So firstly, a grandmother, I can see, thank you for that really thoughtful question. You're in a terrible position, and we recognize it. How can you help these? So you're right that these people are struggling. They have tremendous pain. It's not only hatred and loathing, they have a great deal of pain. And I guess the best thing that I could suggest is seeing if you can intervene in a way to say, maybe even, and I'm not saying you need to come to us, but you might even say, I attended a webinar today or yesterday or last week, whatever it is. And maybe it would be helpful for to talk with a person who's trained in this, a counselor who is trained in this, to help you sort out what's going on with you and what's going on with the child. We, the parents of one of you, it's not that we want to take sides. We're not blaming one or the other, but we love our grandson. We love your child. We don't want to make it worse. And we don't want you to think that we're interfering busybodies, but can we at least help you get to somebody who can take an impartial view and work with the two of you? I mean, and I would also say, Madam who wrote this, you can either contact Brian or me. I would certainly be happy to speak with you offline.
Yeah,
But
when it comes to the law for grandparents, the courts have tended to side with the parents. They've said if the parents want the grandparents to be involved in the children's lives, they can do that when the children are with them. And so it's an unusual case where grandparents will end up with custody, but it's possible. There are cases where grandparents have been the primary caregivers of the children, and it's in the best interest of the children to be with the grandparents rather than with the parents.
My
But
sense from this grandmother writing is not that they themselves want the child, but they recognize that the child has just had it with the parents fighting, and they want to try to bridge the gap
right,
between the two parents. But the fact is, and usually as a grandparent, you're seen by the spouse who is not your child as favoring your child, and that's why it's good to try to say to them, can we help you get to an impartial counselor who doesn't have an opinion to start out?
right, and just put all the issues on the table and try to work out something that's going to work for the children. And a lot of that sometimes is ground rules for behavior, so that the children are shielded from the conflict. That's what's hard for children, is when they're in the middle of conflict between two parents. Conflict is normal. It's part of human relations to have conflict, but the children shouldn't be the objects of a tug of war. They shouldn't be in the middle of it. They need to be shielded from that, and that's so important, I think.
Well, Brian, I couldn't agree more. Also, we had a question that came in by writing before the webinar, and it says, what approach should a parent take when the other parent has withheld access during COVID and the same parent has installed the fear of death should the child visit? And, my view is that, and again, I recognize that what I'm saying may feel like pie in the sky to some of you, but I would encourage you, however possible, to talk with the other parent, maybe with the help of a mediator, a counselor, maybe with pressure from both your lawyers, not to fight, but the pressure to say, get down there get on the phone, get on the Zoom and meet with each other, for heaven's sakes. COVID is real. We are correct we want to protect our children. We want to protect ourselves and our children, but withholding access, that's a very big thing. Now, but access can be different in today's world than it was 10 months ago. Access may be this, it may be Zoom. Of course, it's not as good as hugging your child. No question, but it is something. Is there a way that we can find opportunities for access, or opportunities for visiting, opportunities for connecting, for being with each other, to checking homework, all those kinds of things virtually, if we can't do it physically?
I'll tell you what the courts are saying about this
Please.
is that if there's an access regime in place that pre-COVID, that it should continue unless there are significant health concerns with the continuation of that access. So the expectation of the court is that you're not using COVID as a weapon, as a tool to punish or prevent the other parent from having a relationship with the child. You need to work out those COVID-related protocols so that your children are safe, and access should continue unless there are exceptional circumstances where someone in the family would be really at much higher risk. We're all at risk living on this earth at this time, but a much higher risk due to other health concerns or other circumstances. Only in those exceptional circumstances would they prevent access from happening. So access is to continue generally.
Yeah. And if I could just sum up my view on this whole topic, blended families, and what happened prior to get us there, i.e. either death or divorce and the end of one family union, is we both use the word respect a great deal. Another word I would use is generosity. Okay, it is time that need, we have children. We need to develop a generosity of spirit. We need to, uh, we need to reach out to each other, put our stuff behind us. Okay. And if that means talking to your own therapist or a counselor in this situation, then do it. Um, because we do want to move forward and we want to move forward in a healthy way. Brian, if I may, I just had another question come in. Any suggestions about blending families when there is a child in the other family that came to be as a result of an affair? So yeah, I have a suggestion. None of this is easy. My suggestion is whatever the truth is better than lies, and the truth is better than fantasy. Do we tell a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old the details of a romantic affair, relationships outside of marriage? No. But do we, at some point, we have to recognize this child is still a member of this family. And, I don't know your circumstances to the lady who wrote. I don't know if the child is living in your home, living in the home of the other parent. We have to put our cards on the table. This is the time, whatever we can put on the table is real, can be dealt with. What is under the table and is hidden is only going to lead to more difficulty later. Let's deal with it, even the things that are very, very difficult. Now, I would suggest, depending on the age of the child, please, yes, talk to a family counselor. Understand where your child is at developmentally and emotionally. What is the child able to comprehend? How can you share this information without yourself being angry and punitive? But it really is true that lying doesn't work, because on top of everything else, you have to remember what you said.
Yeah.
When you always tell the truth, you know what you said. And even though it may be harsh, and I don't want to, as the saying goes, pussyfoot around it, I want to be real, but you don't have to layer on all the details. You answer where the child is at. So I guess my suggestion to the lady who wrote this is, please speak to someone who can help you deal with it,
Yeah,
who
and
can
a
guide
lot of
you.
a lot of that, going back to respect, it's to respect that's pretty hard to accept a child who is as a result of an affair. That would be hard to accept that, and we need to hear about it and understand and and respect that's a hard thing to do for the heart. But it's not the child's fault, right? The
Definitely not.
child's not to be blamed. It's irrelevant to them, and they didn't do anything to cause this. So the child only deserves love and support from everybody, so that they can grow up to be strong, healthy, productive members of society. So, well, Michael-Sue, we don't have any more questions at this time. You've really done a lot today to help people who are struggling with blended families, and I really want to say thank you, and I appreciate you taking this time to share your expertise, and it's been really helpful. So everyone out there listening or watching on YouTube, we want you to keep focused on the children, and you'll be able to get through this and be able to make it a good event for children if you always stay focused on what's best for them. Any last words, Michael-Sue?
Well, I want to thank you, Brian, for inviting me, and to say to anyone who's watching, you don't have to do this all alone. There are people out there. Brian and I are out there, and there are people like us, lawyers who truly believe in collaborative work, social workers, therapists who can help you sort out the issues and come to terms with your losses and then help you help your children. We know this is very difficult. We understand that, but it is a process, and there can be there can be a positive ending to it, and there can even be there can be a what do they say, a rainbow on the other side. It can happen. Takes a lot of work, as I said, respect, generosity, but and people like us are here to help you with it. So
Absolutely.
please reach out. That's what our job
Absolutely.
is.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Michaele-Sue.
Okay, take care. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.